most doctors who work in actual hospitals and medical institutions have to show up to the office. We know that employees are more productive and more efficient when they are working in an in-office environment.
Michael Strahan used to crush quarterbacks in the NFL, but on national TV, he got completely outmatched this time by Karoline Leavitt, a former press secretary for Donald Trump. Now a host on Good Morning America, Strahan tried to take her on. In a political interview, he came in with rehearsed lines and talking points that felt straight from the Democratic playbook. But Leavitt wasn't fazed. She answered confidently, calmly, and without a script hand it showed. Strahan looked stunned. He stumbled, flinched, and struggled to keep up. What was supposed to be a tough interview for Leavitt ended up being a clear win for her. It's what happens when scripted questions meet someone who's sharp, direct, and unfiltered. In the end, Strahan wasn't ready and
I want to start with the administration's offer to buy with a mass buyout to federal employees out there. How many do you hope will take it, and by what percentage does the president want to downsize the federal workforce?
Michael Strahan leaned in, confident and sure of himself. He brought up President Trump's plan to shrink the federal workforce by offering buyouts to 2 million government employees. Strahan seemed to think this would trip Karoline Leavitt up, maybe paint Trump's team as reckless or anti-worker. But Leavitt didn't miss a beat. She was prepared and ready to push back.
Their promise made and kept by President Trump. He told the American people on the campaign trail that he was going to make our federal government more efficient and productive. And it is a fact that only 6% of the federal workforce here in Washington, D.C. actually shows up to the office.
Calmly set the record straight. She said the plan offered voluntary buyouts, not layoffs or firings. It was meant to slim down a bloated federal system and save money. While critics called it harsh, she argued many of the roles were outdated, unnecessary, and costing taxpayers millions.
Class Americans, our teachers, our nurses, our law enforcement officers who keep this economy working show up to the office every single day, and President Trump expects that federal employees do this.
He reminded viewers that real accountability means making tough decisions. Government jobs, she said, aren't guaranteed paychecks. They're supposed to serve the public, not fund comfortable remote jobs for people who barely contribute.
Order, as presented in that memo last night, directs federal agencies to come up with a return-to-work policy for their agencies. And if federal bureaucrats in this city don't like that, well, guess what? They can resign from their positions, and this administration is offering them 8 months of pay. They will be paid through September just to simply resign from their position.
Made it clear essential services weren't going anywhere. The plan targeted waste, not what matters. She said the savings would be used to strengthen national security, improve healthcare, support veterans, and boost law enforcement.
If 5 to 10% of the federal workforce resigns, it will save taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. And so, look, we want people to return to work. We have beautiful federal office buildings here in Washington, D.C. that American taxpayers are paying for. They should be used.
Leavitt said, if 5 to 10% of federal workers took the buyout, it could save billions. She added that empty federal buildings in D.C. should be put to use. By the end, Strahan looked caught off guard. She came with facts, flipped the narrative, and clearly took control. Still, he wasn't ready to back down.
Any concern that we risk losing people with years of experience like doctors and let's say scientists?
And kept pushing, thinking he had another gotcha moment. He questioned why doctors and scientists needed to work in person. But that backfired. Nothing sounds more out of touch than expecting medical professionals to treat patients from home on a laptop.
Doctors who work in actual hospitals and medical institutions have to show up to the office. We know that employees are more productive and more efficient when they are working in an in-office environment, and that's what this administration expects, and I think that's what American taxpayers expect.
That didn't hesitate. She called the argument ridiculous. Doctors can't check heartbeats or do surgery over Zoom. Scientists doing critical, often classified work can't run tests from their kitchen tables. The push to return in person, she said, was just common.
Forget, it's the American people who are funding this government, and they deserve people who are actually showing up to work on their behalf.
But made it simple. Taxpayers deserve workers who show up. Strahan's plan backfired, showing he didn't grasp the jobs he was defending. Leavitt didn't flinch. If you're paid by the public, you owe them effort. No more free rides. What some call compassion, she called laziness. Strahan looked rattled, and his last move, It was the worst yet.
Let's get to the funding part. The White House putting a freeze on federal assistance program. The federal judges put the freeze temporarily on hold, saying the government itself doesn't have the full scope of the programs that are going to be impacted. So what's your response to that?
With nothing else working, Strahan went all in. He hit back emotionally, accusing Trump's team of cutting programs from marginalized groups. That's when Karoline Leavitt hit him with a dose of reality.
As I addressed in my first press briefing yesterday, this is a temporary pause on federal assistance and grants so that the Office of Management and Budget here in the Executive Office of the President can review all federal assistance that is going out the door.
Leavitt shot back without hesitation. She said the president wasn't cutting essential programs, he was cutting waste. Ridiculous, bloated spending that served no real purpose. She pointed to taxpayer-funded studies on shrimp, running on treadmills and high-paid bureaucrats who rarely showed up. That's the kind of nonsense being shut down.
And President Trump promised the American people he would be a good steward of their tax dollars. And what we cannot do is fund programs that run contrary to the executive orders and actions that this president has already
Leavitt made it clear. The Trump administration was protecting what mattered: veterans' benefits, law enforcement, emergency services. None of that was being cut. What was on the chopping block? Waste, red tape, and years of bloated, unnecessary spending.
There will be no more federal funding for DEI programs. There will be no more federal funding for the Green New Deal, which is an order from the previous administration that President Trump has rescinded. It would make no sense for American taxpayers to pay for policies that this administration is no longer implementing.
Leavitt spelled it out. The buyout plan wasn't just smart, it was fair. It gave workers a choice, rewarded those who left, and helped build a leaner, more effective government. And if people really cared about underserved communities, she said, they should ask why billions were wasted on pet projects and corporate handouts that helped no one. Strahan was left speechless. His big accusation didn't just fall flat, it backfired. He ended up looking less like a truth teller and more like a defender of waste.
All this is a temporary pause on federal assistance and grants so we can conduct a review of all of the money that's going out the door.
Karoline flipped the script. This wasn't about budget. Cuts it was about basic common sense. She made it clear the president wasn't wasting another cent on broken agencies, failed programs, or NOSHO employees. Strahan just blinked. His argument wasn't just refuted, was completely undone. He ended up looking less like a truth teller and more like someone defending waste he didn't understand.
Stated yesterday, individual assistance such as Medicare payments, Social Security benefits, welfare, food stamps, and Medicaid assistance will not be impacted by this federal pause. So the American people should not worry. If they're receiving individual assistance from the federal government, they will continue to receive it.
Closed with brutal clarity. This wasn't about politics, it was about principle. If the media was so upset over cutting waste, she said, maybe they should pay for it themselves. Strahan's face said it all. He came looking for a viral moment, but got schooled on real leadership. Whatever credibility he had left, it vanished. Now visibly sweating, Strahan looked out of moves, but too proud to quit. So he reached for one last shot, and in doing so, made his biggest mistake yet.
The system was disrupted across the country yesterday. Online portals, they went down in response to this freeze action. So should that not have happened? And is that a sign of a chaotic rollout?
Claimed the Medicaid portal had been shut down, but it hadn't, not even close. In their rush to trap Leavitt, they skipped the basics, checking the facts. If they had, they'd have known the portal was fully up and running, making his question pointless.
No, absolutely not. And I would like to address that. We were made aware of that immediately, and we amended the problem immediately. The Medicaid program is back up and running online.
Karoline Leavitt delivered the final blow with calm confidence. The portal wasn't just working, it had been upgraded. Services were faster and more accessible, with fewer delays. The real issue wasn't the system, it was the false narrative pushed by careless media voices like Strahan, which reminded everyone that the administration had no plans to block access to vital services. But spreading misinformation causes panic, breaks trust, and is simply irresponsible. Strahan sat frozen. His gotcha moment had fallen apart on live TV. All he could manage was a forced smile and a quiet nod. Meanwhile, Leavitt stayed cool and steady. She didn't just defend the administration, she exposed the media's failures for all to see. This wasn't just a debate. It was a takedown.
President Trump's nominee for Secretary of Health and Human Services has his confirmation hearing this morning with his cousin Karoline Kennedy. She's speaking out against him, calling him, quote, unqualified with dangerous and willfully misinformed views on vaccines, and that he is a predator. And what's your response to that?
You have to wonder what Strahan thought he'd gain with that question other than trying to trap Karoline Leavitt. But here's the thing. Leavitt isn't some rookie who crumbles under pressure.
I would reject those comments fiercely. RFK Jr. is widely respected. He's a great man who has dedicated his life to public service and to research. He is pro-science, and he is committed to making this country healthy again.
Leavitt stayed calm and sharp, showing exactly why Trump picked her. She tore apart Strahan's weak setup, leaving him rattled as his gotcha moment flopped. Then she shifted to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., noting his long record on environmental safety, health transparency, and reform. Far from fringe, she said, he's challenged powerful systems and sparked real change.
He campaigned alongside President Trump, and they spoke that motto to tens of millions of Americans across the country who clearly believed in it. America is one of the richest yet unhealthiest countries in the world.
Leavitt wasn't. T just defending a person. She was standing up for RFK Jr.'s record and the hard truths he's dared to speak. She reminded viewers that facts not media spin should shape our national conversation. His legal victories, published work, and persistence have earned respect across party lines. Agree with him or not, she said, his voice matters and deserves to be heard, not silent.
Our autism rates, we should be performing far better. Our people should be much healthier. And that's all that RFK Jr. is trying to do. And so President Trump stands strongly behind him.
President Trump doesn't make appointments.